everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CoachCon Podcast. So, we are up to episode 27. I had to think about that. That's how much I've been enjoying this podcast, you know what I mean? Week after week, it goes by, and I was going to get a guest on this week, but I'm hopefully going to get him on next week, because this episode's an important one. They're all important, but I think this one's the most important. Actually, that's self-centered. I shouldn't say that. It's important to me. It might not be important to you, but it's important to me. So, can't actually believe that I'm finally announcing this, finally talking about this. There's only a very, very select few people that have known about this. And, I've just really, for once, kept my big mouth shut. So, this is one that I've known has been come for a while. It's not a necessarily motivational sort of podcast. I'm not trying to impress anyone. What I'm doing, it's just about commitment, and ultimately it's saying something out loud, so I've got to get on with it. I've got to live up to it, and that's something that I talk about. If you say something out loud, you start telling people, and the select few people that I've told, I kind of know that they're kind enough to probably not say anything, and be rude to us, but I know them well enough that they go, oh, he said he'd do that and he's not done it, And that's a good thing, and that's what I want, because I think I'd be like that with something like this. If you're going to put this out there, then this is, you might as well get on with it and say it cleanly and clearly as well. So, on May the 16th, 2026, I'll be competing in a bodybuilding show. I'm going to be competing at the PCA First Timers, and that is going to be at Birmingham Town Hall. So, that is the first part of this little announcement. So, as of today, so when this goes out on Monday, I'll be 16 weeks and 5 days out, so 17 weeks out from competing, which something I never thought I'd ever be doing. And I'm going to get into that a little bit today. And then somehow, through an act of God, I aim to complete a 70-mile ultramarathon through Rat Race Adventures, and that is going to be on the 13th of June 2026. So, how I'm going to do that, no idea. It was one of my pals, Joe, that I'd mentioned this to in passing, and it was polite, but he basically said, well, probably not the best idea, mate. That was... But, he's got a point, and maybe it isn't, but, maybe I'll fall on my sword, but we'll see how we get on. So 2 very different challenges, depending what happens if I end up placing okay at the First Timers. The PCA Universe is actually a week later, so if I've got my information correct, I believe I would then get to compete a week later at the Universe, potentially. I think that's how it falls. So, as it stands, it's like roughly 5 weeks apart in the calendar for these things, but there might be the Universe in between, so it's sort of 3-4 weeks apart in that run up to doing the Ultra. So 2 very different challenges, and why I'm actually announcing this is I don't want to announce something lightly. I did think long and hard about this. I talked this over with a couple of folks very close to me before I sort of put my hat in the ring and booked it. Now, I'll be completely honest, this has been booked since before Christmas, so I'm going to say this is like 17 weeks out now. This has comfortably been booked for about 23, from 23 weeks out, so like it was booked about 6-7 weeks ago, I'm going to say, probably 7. And I'm basically just putting this out there for accountability. Obviously, I do hope it inspires some people, obviously folks that have seen my journey from what I've done, from how I've looked in throughout my life at different points. I've drifted before. I can say standards have slipped. I've never gone back completely to square one or anything like that from the worst I'd ever been. But I'm saying it publicly, and this sharpens focus. So I'm not sort of announcing this for anything other than hopefully inspiring some people. But I'm going to have to live up to it, and I'm going to have to do it. So this isn't just a phase. I'm not saying I'm going to be calling myself a bodybuilder. I'm not going to be doing anything like that. It's not just for content. Obviously, a lot of content's going to come out of this. I'm going to be really on it in the gym. I'm very fortunate with the folks I train with that, and I've told them that they're very supportive. In particular, my client and very good friend Bill. He's been really good, really supportive, and has said, if you want things filming, some sets, things like that, he's going to help, which is amazing, very kind of him. And I just want to show this as like the continuation, the next stage, if you like, from what I've already done. And it just feels like the logical step for the standards that I've been building, particularly, I was going to say this year, but last year, primarily, after summer and things like that. Really over the last sort of 4 months of changing the way that I am as an individual, so putting myself first a lot more, and not kind of pouring from an empty cup, as much as I don't really like that expression. I think the healthy thing that I would just say is setting boundaries and being better with not that I've been disorganised, but better with my time, in the sense of, if something doesn't work for me and I know it's not going to benefit me, then I'm not going to be doing it. So that is essentially why I'm doing this now. I think that's been the question from a couple of folks I've told, why sort of thinking about doing it now. And I think I've had tremendous momentum. Training's in an exceptional spot. It has been now for about 4 or 5 months. And it just feels right. It just feels the right thing to do. And for me, I wanted to do it properly, so hence I call it properly. But for me, I want to do, I didn't want to do the board shorts. I was advised initially off one of my pals, you should do men's physique, just try that, do the board shorts, things like that. But I just thought, no, if I'd rather do it, old school, the trunks, doing it, because the people that's inspired me has always been that sort of field. So obviously going back years to Arnie, Frank Zane, Dorian Yates, that's what's bodybuilding's inspired me. So I want to kind of follow that path in a way. And, it's going to be very tough in terms of the discipline. I've been lucky enough that I've had a lot of friends that's walked this path before me into a high standard as well in what they've done. So I've been able to see what they've gone through, what they've done. And it's about execution. I'm going to leave no stone unturned. I've had some fantastic help, a couple of very good friends have been helping us along the way. In Kyle, one of my pals who's been brilliant with us, and I've had some great advice from the guys at Ultraflex, Mark, Anth, and so on, that have been really helpful. And one thing that's definitely on my list, there is going to be a reel when all this is done, and because I must thank these people properly for what they've done, and a couple of other folks that's been helpful chipping in advice as well. So it's about doing it properly, and I'm going to do my very best. Of course, do you want to win something? Yeah, I do. I'm not going just for a participation trophy in my first show. I want to do well. I want to place. In the past, I think I've covered this on Instagram fairly recently, talking about when I've crash dieted before and rushed things. But this time, there's patience, there's structure with the eating, as Kyle's helped us with, just, finalising a meal plan that I can stick to and we can tweak. And ultimately just raising the standards. And it's, for me, as cliche as it might sound, it's very much going to be about the process of this. So getting through it. And I want to walk out on stage on the 16th of May knowing that I've respected the process, I've adhered to the plan, I've done everything that I can in order to hopefully do okay on the big day. So we'll probably come back to bodybuilding. I don't particularly script these things. I just put the camera on and go, right, stuff it. Just gonna have a sip of this orangeade. Oh yes. Anyway, the Ultra, 13th of June. So this is probably where I've got a bit stupid, and I'm going to explain it. So last year, for those of you that's maybe followed me a little while now, I was planning to do the Manchester Marathon and Leeds Marathon. The day before the Manchester Marathon, when I was in Manchester, I got really poorly, very bad. It was basically eventually diagnosed to be like a stomach infection, which in turn got me a night at Manchester Hospital. But basically what happened was I was terribly ill the day before. I'd got there in advance, had all my carbs with me, ready to carb load, do everything right. Day before, I'm in a terrible state, really bad, being sick. The other end as well, terrible. So completely depleted my body of, everything. I couldn't keep any food down. I woke up the day of the marathon and I thought, well, I'm going to have a go. It's a nice day, sun's shining. I don't feel great, but I've popped a Red Bull and we'll see what happens. And it was a real slog after about the first mile or so. And I kept going. I used the checkpoints, used energy gels, used a few prayers, but it wasn't my day. And I got put out my misery in the mile 14, where I was just uncontrollably sick, basically. And some kind people who lived on the street that we were running through basically just stopped me and called. Fortunately, a medic was passing on a bike and just kind of ended my day for me. And I ended up, eventually it was an ambulance job and so on. And it wasn't a great day. So the point I'm making is a couple of weeks later it was going to be the Leeds Marathon. And I dropped down. I just did the half. I got through the half. I still wasn't quite 100%. I was badly hurt on the day as well. After, not even kidding, about a tenth of a mile, I was in agony with my left leg. Just I call it the old trouble. Just shin splints, but I think it was like a little bit of a stress fracture just with doing that marathon, doing a little bit of training in the run up to the marathon, and it just wasn't my day. Got through it. It wasn't a great time, 2.25 hours. I was really wanting to go for it. And fortunately, I had some good help on the day. I had someone on the phone that day that I'll leave nameless, but they know who they are. And they were very, very good at getting me through it. Offered some great advice, and I'll never forget that. So that got me through it. And I knew that my parents were at the finish line, which was obviously nice. So I wanted to make sure that I got through that. But the point is, I believe a week later was actually going to be the ultra that I'm doing this year. And basically I wrote to them, Rat Race Adventures, and they were very courteous. I basically said, look, I've had some terrible luck. This is what's happened. This is a story. It's not safe for me to do this, which I felt was a big decision. But essentially, I knew my leg wasn't going to be right. I knew that physically I wasn't in the best spot, obviously, with having the stomach infection, and then you're asking yourself to do the half marathon and so on. It was a little bit reckless to be attempting to do that. I just don't think it was the right move. So called that off, deferred, kind of forgot that I'd deferred it, if I'm honest. And now I'm competing in bodybuilding, which I wanted to book. I was actually going to book it in June. Really glad I didn't do that. Fortunately, two of my very good friends and former clients, Lewis and Alex, are getting married, so I'm invited to their wedding at about the end of June. I just forgot the date. But the end of June, which is fantastic, so really looking forward to that. So I couldn't obviously compete in June at the back end when I was looking at, because obviously their wedding weekend, so I want to be present, obviously not going to miss that. So competing in May, which leaves the ultra for mid-June. So endurance has always been part of my identity in a way, as probably as David Goggins as that kind of sounds. But basically the crack with that is I did a lot of endurance events. I think not last year before, I did basically over 100 competitive miles. So that was half marathons. That was an ultra as well. I did a 50k ultra. And I just kind of shown what's possible through that. A lot of those events were just turn up and hope for the best. This, unfortunately, is going to be the same. It's just the way it is. I can't be running while I'm prepping for a show. It's not really going to work in terms of, as much as I don't like this saying, like fatigue management, running isn't the best thing to be doing. Fitness is absolutely amazing at the moment in terms of my cardio, really, bumping it up a notch on the Stairmaster bike, incline treadmill some days as well. Sort of a fast incline walk on about an 8% incline. That's been going brilliant. So fitness is not going to be an issue. I'm confident in that. But obviously the way I'm going to obviously be leaning down and at the lower body fat percentage and everything like that, in terms of the show, it's going to be a real challenge to see if my body is then able to complete and do endurance work. Because typically when I've done the endurance stuff, I've actually been a little bit heavier than I am now. I don't, being super lean and that kind of thing, it's not, just for me, I've always felt not better having more weight on. But I'll be honest, even when I did the Leeds half, the first time about probably 3 years ago now, I'm going to say, I was actually over 100 kilos for that. And it didn't feel great, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like, I wasn't light as a feather, but I got through it. I had enough fuel. I was not lightheaded. Obviously, I had plenty of body fat on. Not plenty, but, a little bit chunkier than I'd have liked. And I got through it. There was no problems in terms of, glycogen, things like that. I don't know. Because I was, in my opinion, I don't know how scientific this is, even though I should know with my nutritionist background, but it probably worked in my favour. I was a little bit heavier for that first event. Now, I've done events before around the 92 kilo mark. I think high 80s for around the 50k. But I'm actually a little bit lighter now. I'm around 86 at the moment. So, again, it's going to be a challenge. I know on stage I'm going to be between 78 and 80. That's kind of, in my head, where I'm going to look my best. Obviously, if it dips a little bit under that before, the carb up and so on, so be it. But then again, it's going to be potentially how I place. If I end up going to the universe or anything like that, it's going to be obviously 3 weeks sort of turnaround. In theory, 3 weeks at the most to get my body ready for June the 13th. So it'll be trying to up the food to get a little bit of weight back on, a little bit of padding if you like, just so that there's more energy on me. I don't want to be sort of single digit body fat percentage like I'm going to be for the bodybuilding side of things. So it's going to be very interesting. It's a bit of a science experiment. I think, not in a reckless way, but I'm not that bothered, about myself because it's me versus me. I don't really care what happens to me in this scenario. It's the thing of I'm doing it, I'm signed up to things. We'll see what happens. It's the 70 miles. I was talking to my pal Josh about this, and we're basically saying it's just a mental challenge. It's just going to be grit your teeth and get through it. Now, the good thing about this event is, not that I want to do this, there's actually a 26-hour time limit. So in theory, obviously you'd have to walk for the full 26 hours. You wouldn't have to sleep or stop or anything. But essentially you could do it as a brisk walk. Not that I'm planning to do that. I want to run as much as possible. I know one of my pals did it a few years back and she got it done in around about 16 hours or something like that. So I'm thinking if I can get maybe 18, that would be good. You start 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm kind of thinking if I can get in, by about midnight, that would be okay. I've done endurance events before. I'm not worried about it. I'm quite excited. I'm interested to see, how I bounce back, how I get on with things. I know there's going to be people not necessarily listening to this, but as I'd like to think, it's pretty much my pals that kind of tune into this podcast, and I'm talking to people that are, daft as it sounds, on my side a bit, but I think between us, I think when I release more content around this and start telling people what I'm doing and breaking it all down, I think it's going to be the thing of like, what's he doing? The idiot. There's going to be a lot of talk, but I just see it as the next test. I just, for me, anyone can diet, anyone can run, but very few people can do both properly. And I fully intend on doing it properly. But with this, as much as there's not going to be significant training for the ultra, because there cannot be with the two different demands, there will be some intelligence applied. So obviously recovery, post-show, getting the food in, fueling up, hopefully getting a couple of short runs in post-show, and just getting it done. I'm not chasing times here. I'm not thinking, about getting, I'm going to do it in 14 hours, 16 hours. I'm just thinking, if you can get there by midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, I know I'm going to finish in the dark. The thing is that even possible? Is it possible to do both? It only works if I respect both things. I realise that post-show I am going to have to not be reckless, but I am going to have a rebound. I am going to have to put some weight on quickly because I am going to have to, obviously have enough on me and enough, able to store enough food and so on to be able to get through this. And ultimately, with ultramarathons, folks that have done one will know, an ultra is, I believe, kind of easier than a marathon because some people do, but you're not necessarily chasing times. You're just kind of thinking, well, I want to get through it. I want to, there's a lot of eating involved as well in terms of like, fuel and that kind of thing. You basically haven't, if you're going to be out for hours and hours, you're going to have to be eating, be fueling. So you need to take your time with your digestion. You may need to walk a little bit as well. You're not running sort of 70 miles in a sense. You're completing a distance the best time you can, because obviously, I know when I even did my 50k, full transparency, there was a few 100 metres here and there that were walked. If I was trying to get a trek bar down, I can't really be jogging and digesting and eating. So, it's, I will listen to obviously feedback with my body, and I know prep's tough. I respect prep 1,000,000%. Another reason I'm doing this, I know coaches that's tried to prep, they've failed for whatever reasons they've tried to give. But I'm determined to get through it. I believe that I'm capable of doing it. The support that I've got around me has never been better. I think the confidence that I'm getting through, even just doing sort of the podcast and the people that I'm associating with and that kind of thing, everything's in a good spot. And I'm not winging it. I don't feel that I am. There's a little bit involved, but, I'm trying to manage it as best I can, but both will get done. So I'm just going to have another sip here. So saves us press and pause. Oh, bloody hell. So, with me, you don't need to copy what I'm doing, but you need your version of commitment. So I was talking to one of my clients this morning in Ultraflex, and he was just saying, like, he feels good, he's looking good, he's got a holiday booked, but he just wants to try and find something a little bit more, of a goal, something that he really wants to do, but something that's going to light him up. And I've said, for me, it's always been the thing of the endurance events have always been good, but it's also the thing as well of, again, wanting to push myself, wanting to see what's possible, wanting to see how far I can take something. For me, as well, another reason that I'm doing both of these things is how it ties into me and my coaching. And I always like to coach from lived experience. I don't know if he's listening, but one of my pals, Michael Purdy, who's a PT, we were chatting the other week, and he's been amazing doing the high rock stuff, the running. He competed in, I believe it was men's physique he did as well. He's lived it. He's done these different things. He's got incredible times with the running, the high rocks. He looked fantastic on stage. He did really well, and I kind of thought, he's coaching these clients that are all doing these things. He's coached folks that have been on a stage. He's obviously coached the high rocks. He's coached the running. And I'm kind of thinking, I'm only ever going to coach from what I know. If someone even comes to me right now saying, I want to step on stage, I'd be like, give me like another few months so I can do it all myself, and then I can give you a hand, I want to be doing that from lived experience. I don't want to preach what I don't practice, It'd be like me still being 20 stone and trying to, talk about fat loss. It doesn't work. Being a fat PT, in my book, doesn't do it, It's not just coaching theory, it's coaching what I live, what I want to do. And this year, I've just turned 30 3 days ago. I want to keep achieving things. I want to keep doing stuff. This year for me is just about sharpening standards. For me as well, I think clients are going to benefit from that. So that's kind of my thought process with this. Just in closing, it's not about motivation. It's just about me. I'm going to be doing the work consistently, properly. I'm going to document it honestly, the good, the uncomfortable, because it's real life. I'm not just going to be hopping in the posing room with Ultraflex every 5 minutes going, this is great, look at me. I've never done that. Even the times I've put physique updates on, I've always tried to say what I've been doing, what's been happening, how I'm feeling, and try and give some value. It's not just look at me. And whether you're listening to this, you know, from the sidelines, or maybe you're already doing your own thing, maybe thinking about doing your own thing, I hope this gives you a nudge to stop drifting and start committing. And you don't have to, as I say, do what I'm doing. I am going to document everything as much as I can. For anyone listening to this as well, I'm going to be putting this episode out on Monday, so I'll be announcing this on Instagram, of course, on Monday. But I am going to be, as I say, documenting all the nitty-gritty, if you know what I mean, of this prep, the supplementation and so on, if you know what I mean. So if people do want to see that side of things, I'm not going to be putting it on my main feed, you know, because I don't want to be, as I say, don't get shadow banned, anything like that. Don't want to be pushing anything that I'm doing. Not that anything that I'm doing is over the top or extreme or taking anything crazy, nothing like that. I'm doing everything as healthy as possible. But if you do want to be a part of that, drop a comment, DM me on Instagram. I will pop you on my close friends on Instagram for the duration of prep. So you can kind of see some of the behind the scenes, if you like, some of the kind of the backstage, if you like, of what's happening, what I'm doing, what I may be taking, just anything that's general interest. I'm going to leave this here. Thank you for listening. God bless you. I'll catch you in the next one. Follow the journey. Give it a share. Tell your friends if it resonates. Any questions, please just DM me on Instagram. There's no gatekeeping here. You know, I want to be as upfront and as honest as I can. And that is kind of that. So I shall see you all next Monday, and take it easy. Bye-bye.